Hi there. Welcome to today's session. I'm Jonathan Westerling. I'm Manager of Special Programs for Google's SAS team. And one of the things that we hear from customers is how they're still learning how to manage all of the spectrum that CBRS provides to them. Today we're unveiling two new features in our SAS that are going to help you manage your CBRS channels. So let's switch to the deck and we'll get started. So looking at our agenda, what we're hearing about spectrum utilization from our customers is that things are getting a little more crowded on the spectrum. So we'll hear about that. And then we'll look at two new features that help you deal with that in the SAS. The first is called channel mask or scheduled changes. The next is called frequency reports and frequency planning. Now I'll do a live demo of these features in our SAS portal. During this webinar, you can ask questions via the YouTube chat. If you've never used chat on YouTube, on your first try you might see a message asking you to do what's called create a channel. It's just asking you to set up a YouTube identity, so we see some name next to what it is you're posting. It shouldn't ask you for anything more than just a name. And once you've done that, you can go ahead and post in the chat. And keep in mind there is a delay in the broadcast between 30 seconds and a minute, so I'm not going to see things immediately when you post them if you're joining us live. But do encourage you to ask questions, particularly at the end during our Q&A session. So, as I said, what we're hearing is that CBRS is getting popular. Interference is becoming a more common problem for operators, particularly in more dense areas where there's multiple companies providing service. And it is becoming more of a challenge to find clean channels in those areas, particularly after the PAL launch, which, as you know, assigned some channels to specific PAL winners. And so what we're seeing is operators, our customers need to optimize. They need the SAS to help them find the right channels. And now, with these features we're unveiling today, the SAS can also help you move to those channels on multiple devices at the same time. And I'll show you how that works. The SAS can help you create an ideal channel plan, a holistic view of your network in specific areas, because the SAS has the compute power to do that. And it also has channel knowledge for all the CBSDs that are connected to every SAS, because the SAS knows not just about its own devices, but all of the devices on CBRS. And so we can use that information to compute that ideal channel plan for you. And these new features are particularly useful because not only can you find the best channels, but you can get your CBSDs to move to those channels from one place, our SAS portal. And that means that you can implement these changes, these channel changes, simultaneously over multiple devices. And so the goal here is the SAS can help you manage your channel planning. Currently in Google SAS, we have some features that are already live that help you begin to do this. And we've had these for a while now. They are covered in a previous video on our YouTube channel. The first of these is called channel quality. And by the way, these are available in the Cohorts tab of the SAS portal for all of your devices. If you haven't had a chance to try it out, I encourage you to do so. Check out the Cohorts tab, and in that you'll see this channel quality. The channel quality shows you the highest quality channels in terms of low interference. They have a high EIRP possible, and there's no DPA suspensions happening on those channels. Those channels are going to be rated the highest in the channel quality display, and this is great for setting up new devices. Seeing which are the best channels for you to start those devices operating on. The other thing that we provide is called channel ranking. And channel ranking puts the best channels at the top of the list in the right-hand column of the SAS portal for each device. And not only is this available in the SAS portal, but we also make it available via the Spectrum inquiry. So CBSDs who get their channel assignments via Spectrum inquiry will always get that with Google SAS because that channel ranking feature, putting the best channels, the highest quality channels at the top. And so those are currently available in Google SAS to everyone. And you can check that out in your portal login. But now we're adding 2 additional features to assist with your frequency choice. And the first of these is called scheduled channel changes. In addition to the powerful visualizations that you saw before, where we're calculating all that information about the channel quality and the channel ranking, here's a new way to help you eliminate interference. And the channel mask guides specific CBSDs onto better channels. And the way that works is the existing grants on disallowed channels will be scheduled for termination just before the next CPAS. And after that, only grant requests on the channels you select will be approved. This is great because it allows you to change an virtually unlimited number of channels simultaneously. I suppose it's limited by the number of devices, but we're Google, so we scale super high, and there's no limit to the number of devices you can change at once. We do suggest you check with your vendor to ensure that your particular CBSDs are compatible with this approach, but what we found is that most vendors support this right out of the box. And as you know, most vendors are already testing with Google SAS. But we encourage you to check with your vendor, of course. Now, we know that channel changes are risky, and they can be time-consuming, and they generally mean staying up late at night if you want to do them right before CPAS, which is the best way to minimize your day one channel limitations. And it's also a pain in the neck if that involves multiple base stations, because you're changing multiple radios at the same, and if, depending on your software, that may be more troublesome. Can't do them all at once. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. The Google SAS is the common thread here. And we can, with this scheduled channel changes and the channel mask feature in the SAS portal, you can change the channels of any of your devices from within the SAS portal, from within the SAS. Change it on the SAS, that common thread for all of your devices, whether you're using multiple manufacturers or not. The SAS guides all of your radios that you select through the transition overnight to make sure there's a minimal impact to your subscribers. And I'm going to show you how this works in a live demo here in a moment. The other feature we're unveiling today is called frequency optimization. And frequency planning is the technical name for it. We're optimizing your frequencies. The frequency planning feature involves something called cohorts. And cohorts is a new concept for Google SAS. I want to explain this to you. So we have, in this little graphic here, we have 2 cohorts. There's 4 CBSDs in the yellow cohort on the left. We'll call that number 1. And then the blue, all of those are linked together as a second cohort. They're different CBSDs grouped together in a way. And these CBSDs are all within your network, and they're interconnected because of their interference potential to one another, right? They're generally in proximity to each other, but when you change the frequency on one, it could impact others because of this interrelationship. And the SAS defines cohorts based on what are called interference calculations. So because of this potential to interfere with each other, if you happen to change one, it impacts the others, and then that impacts the others. It's a ripple effect to your entire network within a region, an area. And this is, we see a current problem when you're trying to resolve interference issues. You're resolving one thing one place, and then that causes a problem somewhere else. So the SAS creates these cohorts, these groups, based on the interference calculations that are done every night. And once we have these cohorts, we can calculate an ideal frequency plan for this cohort. And that's the new feature. So frequency planning optimizes your entire network. It calculates the optimized spectrum for all of the devices that you have deployed. And it repacks the channel based on these cohorts. Within this cohort, what are the optimum channels that we can change that won't impact any other devices outside that cohort? And what this does is it repacks your channels, just like they did with the TV spectrum a little while ago, you might remember. analyzed the channels and repacked them in. And what that does is it frees up clean channels for new deployments, for additional sectors that you might want to add. And that's the big benefit here. We're optimizing the spectrum use so that you can create new frequencies to use, because you're making sure that there are no channels that are underutilized. This planning is generated using Google's proprietary propagation model and high-resolution geo and clutter data that we get from Google Maps. This high-quality proprietary propagation model tuned to 3.5 gigahertz is what generates and understands what the potential for interference is, and then creates this frequency plan for you. And you can download the results if you want to do an in-depth analysis of the results in your favorite spreadsheet program. And Google has already worked with select customers to use this approach, this frequency planning, and we use it to free up new spectrum for them. So now we're making this algorithm available to more people via this new spectrum planning feature. Now, the important point to remember is that these are beta releases, and you have to sign up for these new features. And you go to do it, you go to this URL, g.co/shared-spectrum/SAS beta. I'll put that up at the end of the presentation as well, and if it's all right, we'll probably we can have that thrown up in the chat and in the comments of the video, so you can click on it. You can sign up right now. Go ahead and do it if these are of interest to you, if you want to try these out, and we will put you on the list to check them out. The other thing I wanted to take a moment to go into is called advanced interference resolution. And sometimes it's necessary to work with other operators to free up channels. In other words, just freeing up and packing your channels isn't enough. And so we can help you actually work with the other operators to do this, to repack everything. And if you want to do this, if you have a particular area that is subject to interference, our consultants can help you. You have to contact first the Google SAS support team, sas-support@google.com, or you can call them. You can actually make the call right within the SAS portal and connect 24/7 with one of our support agents and get the ball rolling for this advanced interference resolution. And what we do then is we run channel assignments for all the CBSDs, all the operators in the area, and find the specific CBSDs that are causing interference. And then we provide a mini channel report to each operator, which they can then implement. And that channel report contains a list of the CBSDs that need to change the channels. This is a great way to really power through those more advanced interference issues. I wanted to mention that because that's sort of an additional thing that Google can provide for you, our customers. And that's in addition to that's already live. You don't have to sign up for that via the beta program. You just contact our support department to line that up. So circling back to our new features, let's do a live demo. The URL for the SAS portal, if you don't know it already, is g.co/SAS portal. And you can go and click on that right now and log in if you've never done so. Very powerful way to manage your network. And we're going to go through the frequency plans and the schedule changes. And remember that you have to opt in. So if you're logging into your SAS portal, you're not going to see these features. You have to go to that URL, fill out, and be onboarded to the beta section, these tools. And I'll mention, for those of you who may have joined us late, this is the May SAS features demo, and this video will repeat and be posted to our YouTube channel. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, click that red subscribe button. Thank you so much. That helps us tell you when we have new videos released, like this one, and we'll post it on the channel. You can view it there. If you are joining us live, you can post questions in the chat, and we will answer them as we go. You can go ahead and file those questions in now if you have them. I've tried to explain things as thoroughly as possible. We're going to go through the demo here in just a minute, but if there's something that's not clear and you've joined us live, feel free and post that in the chat. So let me switch now over to our SAS portal. And I'm going to go full screen so we can really see everything here. Okay, looks like you can see my SAS Portal here. We're in Texas. And I've got two scenarios set up here. This is our test SAS, by the way. This is our sandbox SAS, where our vendors and our customers can do test deployments. This is not a production environment, so these are all just test devices. And our first, I'm going to click on the little magnifying glass here, go to our first scenario, which is in Leesville, Texas. And in Leesville, we have some customers who are experiencing interference. And so we're going to look at that interference scenario, and we're going to use the scheduled grant changes to take care of that. So here's Leesville, Texas, and I've got a couple of subscribers, and I've got one tower here. And you'll notice these subscribers that are having interference are here on the west side of this sector. So I'm going to click on one of these CPEs, and when I do so, it brings up the information column on the right, and I'm going to click on the COEX tab. Now, you'll notice that when I click on this CBSD, it automatically highlights the sector of this tower, which is serving, this CPE. When I click on this CPE, it is highlighting the sector of the tower that's serving this CPE, and that's because of what are called same frequency groups. We use the same frequency groups to link a particular base station to a CPE, and that helps us easily visualize that here in the user interface. So now on the right-hand side, we look down in the COEX tab, and we can see I've got a grant on channels 2 and 3. And if I look down here at the channel quality, the low end of the band is really the pits. There's no good channel quality happening down here, and it looks like there's some other operator that's using some other channels here. But I do have some sets of channels here, 3 sets of channels that look like they have good channel quality. Let me double check that by going to the base station itself, and I'll check the COEX tab for this sector just to make sure that it also looks clear. And we'll check those same channels, those same 3 sets of channels. Sure enough, looking down this particular sector, these channels are still pretty clear. So I'm going to want to change this sector to one of these sets of channels, either channels 6 and 7, 10 and 11, or 14 and 15. And I'm going to do that using the new feature that we're unveiling here today. And it's called the channel mask, and it's right here. And in order to take advantage of this, first thing I have to do is unlock the CBSD, or the sector in this case. And what that does is it allows me to click this button here, which is called Select Channels. And if I click on Select Channels, it brings up a box which lets me select specific channel, each of the 15 channels that I want this CBSD to migrate to. And in this case, I'm going to deselect these ones down here at the low end of the band that are pretty bad. And I'm going to leave selected the 3 sets of channels that are good quality. I could even just select one channel, but I'm basically selecting the good quality channels. And you'll notice instead of an OK button here at the bottom right, I have a button that says Schedule Request. And the Schedule Request button says that because what happens is the change of channel is scheduled. As I mentioned before, the change of frequencies actually happens at night around 11 p.m. Pacific time. It happens just before CPAS. And what happens is the grants that are currently active, in this case channels 2 and 3, will be terminated, and the SAS will accept grants only on these channels that I've selected here. And so I click the Schedule Request button, and look, let's see what happens here. We have the indication here that only these channels are going to be changed. And I can do that here on the other sector as well. Just click on it. I'm going to have the same scenario, unlock it. And then I can deselect the channels that I don't want to that CBSD to use, and the other channels will be utilized right after CPAS tonight. The other thing I wanted to mention as I scroll up here is you get a little notice here. Existing grants with restricted channels will be terminated on May 20th. That's tonight at, it says 11:23 p.m. So we know what time these are going to be terminated. And the CBSD needs to request a new grant with unrestricted channels. Perfect, yes. So this CBSD, in this case, is going to do the same thing as its peer on the west side, and it's going to select and get these channels once it is terminated. So I've walked you through that. I'm going to pause here. We're going to take some questions, presumably about this feature, and then we'll give you a live demo of the frequency planning as well. Thanks for joining us, folks. If you have questions, you can post them in the chat, and we will do our best to answer them. Sky5 Videos says, if an area doesn't have fully operational ESCs like a coastal DPA, does this still work? Well, Google SAS has, I think, all our DPAs covered. So this shouldn't be an issue on Google SAS, but if, I'm going to answer your question, if an area doesn't have fully operational ESCs, does this still work? The answer, I think, is yes, because if there is not an operational ESC in a coastal DPA, theoretically speaking, because like I said, I'm pretty sure Google's covering our DPAs, but if there wasn't one, then that DPA would be active. Because when you don't have an ESC, the coastal DPA is by default activated. You have to have an ESC to deactivate the DPA. So if it's active, that means those the lower part of the band would be suspended, and you would see that in the channel quality. So the answer, Sky5 Videos, is yes, this feature will still work, but I don't think that's going to be an issue if you're using Google SAS. Great question. Thank you, Hitesh. Welcome, Hitesh. Thanks so much for joining us. So the use case arose because presumably whoever is assigned channel 1 and 2 to the interfere failed to check in with Google SAS for those channels being assigned already to the CPA in question. Actually, you mean channels 2 and 3. Yes, this use case arose actually, Hitesh, in this case, in this scenario that I'm showing you. Let me go back to the CPE here that's having the interference issue. What in this case is we're using channels 2 and 3. And in this case, some other operator is running, looks like 60 megahertz or something down here in addition to what we're running. So the interference is not due to this, my operation. It's some other customer who's also operating here on these other channels. In this scenario, all of my sectors are on channels 2 and 3. So the interference is coming from somebody else in this case. Good question, Hitesh. Pete Crosby is joining us this morning. Good morning, Pete. I have many overdue invoices. This is not related to, this is, Pete, you've asked a question that's off topic. And thank you for that. I'm sorry that you have overdue invoices. There is instructions in the invoices on how to pay them. It should be clearly written there. But tell you what, Pete, I will circle back with you off the air here, and we'll help you tackle that. No problem with that. And thanks for joining us live. Appreciate your question, but I'm going to keep that to a minimum and focus on our new features here, if that's okay. Hitesh asks a follow-up question. Any plans of making this a push instead of a pull method of addressing, i.e. will Google SAS at some point get intelligent enough to push a notification for this issue and suggest a fix? Interesting question, Hitesh. This is sort of it is a push method currently in that we are terminating the grants. So we do allow the we fix the issue as you've programmed it in the SAS portal. And I think what you're asking for is, can this information be put into the termination request, for example? And yes, that's a good idea for a feature that we could do. In this case, we are pushing the issue, as you say, we're forcing the issue by terminating the grant. And then the CBSD is requesting a new grant on the channels, and we only allow the grant to be on specific channels. But Hitesh, all the information that we are suggesting that suggested fix is coming up in just a minute. I'm going to show you how that works with what's called frequency planning. So stay tuned for that. And support SAS asks, when will other operators be visible? Well, we are showing you the other, I mean, if you can see here in the channel quality, we're showing you the other operation, the effect, the impact of those other operators. But we can't actually show you those other SAS operators. And that's because, that's something that can't be disclosed. That's something, their location of their devices is something that that is, it's like, private information. And if they're using another SAS, we can't just disclose that information. Support SAS follows up and says, we ask because we know the neighbor WISP that won other CBS channels, as we have 4 PALs, they have 3 PALs, but we can't see their allocations. I understand your frustration, because technically the CBRS, the SAS, some SAS somewhere knows what those channels are, and it's frustrating to not know what channels the other WISP is using. But like I said, that's their business, and we can't disclose that. Appreciate your frustration, and again, to get back to it, if it becomes a thorny issue, we can help work with other operators, as I said, using our advanced interference resolution, and you can contact our SAS support department for that. So great questions, everybody, about this feature, this channel mask feature. And again, if you're joining us late, this is a feature that lets you schedule schedule channel changes every night just before CPAS. And if you are joining us late, you can rewatch this webinar from the beginning, and you can see more about. You can actually, I walked through how that works. Now, for those of you who are staying with us, it's 10:30. We're going to try to get through this other demo and answer questions about that before we wrap up. So appreciate the questions very much. But let's move along right here and go to our second demonstration. This is the demonstration of frequency planning, the second new feature to debut here, a beta feature that's being added to Google SAS. As of today, these are active right now. So I'm going to go to Giddings, Texas now, nearby town. And we have a little bit more complicated scenario here. Again, we're on channels 2 and 3. I've got 2 towers in Giddings, Texas. And I have a scenario that is problematic for, again, interference happening in this city here. So I'm going to go again to the west side of this tower, which is 0036. And when I click on this particular CBSD, let's take a look at what's happened here. It's something that's fairly similar to the last case. I've got my grant here on channels 2 and 3. And look at, we have a similar scenario here. There's channels 2 and 3 are just not good quality. But if I zoom out here, we've got actually a scenario which is a little more complicated, because I've got towns nearby, and this part of Texas is fairly flat. And if I change these channels here, it's going to impact, for example, my other tower over here on the other side of town. Never mind the other operators, which are my other CBSDs in the neighboring parts of Texas. So I have a scenario where I have a cohort, and if you weren't with us before, cohort is a collection of CBSDs that are interrelated, because when you change the channel on one of them, it's going to impact the others. And so we have a cohort of devices where I need to generate an optimized frequency plan, where I'll benefit from repacking all the frequencies in this part of Texas. And this lives in the table view of the SAS portal. So let's look at that. At the top of the window here, I change from map view. I'm going to go into table view. And that will show me all of the CBSDs that are in my deployment. And in this case, I'm going to filter it just to base stations. And I'm going to show you, and it's I've got a lot of devices actually here in this scenario for the interference, so it's taking a moment to load. It should be quicker for you. But in this case, I've filtered the list by base stations, and I've done that using the filter, the search feature in the upper right-hand side of the screen. Actually didn't notice that when they unveiled it, so I'll definitely draw your attention to that. You can search for CBSDs using this little search function up here. Super helpful. Now, you'll notice that in this table view, I've got some new columns here. And the new columns are frequency plan cohort, frequency plan quality, and frequency plan EIRP. So these are the new columns that are added to your table view of the SAS portal when you've opted into the new frequency planning feature of Google SAS. And so what this does, this channel here, this frequency plan channel, it's graphically showing the ideal channelization for your network. And I've just clicked on the cohort channel here, the cohort column here to group by cohorts. So now I'm seeing my cohorts, my groups of CBSDs, my base stations grouped together into cohorts, and for each cohort, what is the ideal channel plan? And I'm going to scroll down here to cohort 2. I'll put that at the top of my screen so you can see it. And here for cohort 2, this frequency planning is what will result in the optimal use of channels. And for some of these cities here, you can see I actually get 4 contiguous channels. The frequency plan tries to group channels together into contiguous groups. So in some places where there's less interference, I'm getting more channels available that I can choose from. But here where it's more, where there's more interference, it just provides me with the 2 optimal channels for the ideal 20 megahertz of spectrum. So what we're seeing again here is for these cohorts, this channel mapping would maximize the frequency usage and minimize the interference, both at the same time. The frequency plan quality here is showing how confident we are about that prediction based on various other variables that come into play. And the frequency plan EIRP shows what the maximum EIRP is using this frequency plan. So in this case, even though we're fairly congested, we're only getting 20 megahertz for each device here in parts of this cohort, we're still able to get full power, 37 dBm in that within that cohort if we use these channels. You will see a download button at the top of the screen. I don't see it here because of a particular thing specific to the test SAS. I mentioned I'm using this in the test SAS. You're going to use this in your production SAS. So I'm not seeing my download button, but you'll see a download button, trust me, at the top of the screen that lets you download it. All of the information here in the frequency plan columns gets downloaded as a CSV file that you can then open up and analyze. And remember, if you want to make all these changes at once within the same cohort, you can use the channel mask feature that we showed earlier to go into each one of these base stations, schedule that change, and then it will happen that night around 11 p.m. or just before CPAS. And that's using the channel mask feature that I showed earlier, and you can scroll back, you can rewind in the demo if you want to review how that works. So that's frequency planning. Now, I've got a couple other questions, some more chatter in the chat. If you have questions about frequency planning, you can ask that. Will some of the features be provided through APIs? Oh, that's an interesting question, Surav. I appreciate your asking that. We'll count that as a request to make it available within the APIs and queue that up for a feature request. Thanks for showing that you're interested in that. I don't think it's currently in there. I'm sure someone will ping me from our team if it is actually. But I think currently the new features are only available in the SAS portal today. But great question, and thanks for being interested in the APIs, which we also offer. Support SAS says, awesome features. Thanks for the functionalities. Cool. Thank you, Support SAS, for being a Google SAS customer. Pete Crosby, sorry, I missed this. How do I opt into the new frequency plan? Okay, Pete, great question. Yes, I will re-show that URL. There's a form that you fill out that just indicates your interest, and then we'll circle back and activate that in your SAS portal for you. Because this is a beta feature, so we're only activating it for specific people who request the feature. That is via a link, and if someone in our team is listening or has access to the chat, maybe they can post that sign in, the link to that form on the chat. I'll put it in the comments after we're done here, so don't worry about that. You can check back on the video. And Surav, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name, asked a good question. Are these features for both ICG and CCG grouping? Yes, and in Google SAS we call those same frequency and frequency reuse. And those are required, those are part of grouping your devices together, and that will help you get the best frequency plan when you're working on optimizations like this. So yes, you should use that. And Hitesh says +1 for APIs. Great. Yes, we do. We love the Google API suite. So thanks for if you're making use of that. And there's the link there in the chat if you want to click and go ahead and sign up today for to get in line to try out these features. I will switch back now to our slides, and we'll do a quick plug again for our YouTube channel. Ask any follow-up questions. That does conclude our live demo. We're actually a little over what I expected, so we had some good questions. Thanks very much for joining us. Hope you enjoyed these new features. If you have questions, pop them into the chat, and I'll try to answer them before we wrap up. But one quick plug for our SAS YouTube channel. There's hours of content about SAS and CBRS with in-depth presentation about SAS and CPIs, all the features that Google SAS offers. We do try to put new content up there every month. In order to see that new content and be alerted to it, click the subscribe button, that red subscribe button, join the other folks. Let's see if we can get over 200. We're at 195 subscribers. So let's see if we can get 200 wireless customers who are interested in staying abreast of our YouTube channel. And we appreciate that. So any other questions, you can post them into the chat. And there, once again, is that URL to get into our beta program. Certainly, thank you for being a Google SAS customer. We do these SAS features webinars generally once a month, right after we send out our SAS newsletter. If you're not subscribed to our newsletter, you can sign up for that as well. You can contact our support department for that if you want. And we will send you a newsletter that contains a bunch of information, including the announcement of this new features webinar that we do every month to demonstrate certain features in Google SAS, which we hope are valuable to you. And again, I did mention it earlier. I wanted to circle back and make sure I re-mentioned the support email, sas-support@google.com, for requesting those advanced interference analysis with other operators. And we had a question earlier about someone who was having interference with another operator, and we can help power through that. But that you have to contact our SAS support team, sas-support@google.com. You can also call 24 hours a day. One of our agents is there on the other end of the phone, and you schedule those calls right within the SAS portal. Click on the question mark in the upper right-hand corner of the screen and click on call, and we call you, actually, is how that works. And Pete Crosby says, sorry, that URL does not work. Oh, no. It worked for us when I checked it earlier, so I wonder if there's an issue. We'll check it, and we'll post it here in the comments if there's an issue with that URL. But we did check it before the broadcast, and so it worked before. We'll double check it and make sure it works. Pete, sorry you're having a problem with the URL, and as I said, I'll circle back with you on those billing issues after the broadcast here. So thanks everybody for joining. Not seeing any other questions in the chat, so we will go and say thank you everybody for being here for this live webinar, and support SAS as the URL works for them. So, okay, sorry, Pete. Maybe try a different browser. But there's the, very clever. Somebody in my team has posted the actual doc link to the form. So try that, Pete. That hopefully will work for you. And Hitesh says, good work, guys. Thanks. Excited for the new features. Yes, great. Thank you, everyone. Hope you enjoy using these new features to help you in areas where you're having some congestion issues. But may your spectrum be free from interference, both thanks to these features and thanks to CBRS and Google SAS. Thanks for joining today. Do appreciate your being with us, and thanks for being a Google SAS customer. And we'll see you next month for the next Google SAS features webinar, as well as on Tuesdays we do the Network Planner live webinars as well every Tuesday at 10. So thanks very much for joining us on the live webinar. Great questions. Thanks everybody, and have a great rest of your week. Stay safe, and thanks for being with Google SAS. Take care, everybody.